Bo Bichette has spoken out about his arbitration drama that got resolved over the past couple of days, as well as Toronto Blue Jays manager John Schneider, who wants his team to be more aggressive on the base paths in 2023. We'll have that and much more on this episode of Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. We've got a lot to get into today. We want to thank you all for the support that we've gotten on our videos, on our live streams. Happy to be back. It's been a real busy time for the both of us, but thanks again for all your continued support.
Yeah, we're on the road to 7K subscribers. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, and let's just get right into the video. Lots to break down today. Obviously, yesterday, some players reported to camp. We had lots of different sightings. Obviously, in yesterday's video, we talked about George Springer, and some more news has come out. So we'll get into the first one now, which is Bo Bichette speaks out on the free agency madness that was his arbitration hearings. And he had a lot to say, and, well, not too much, but it was good to see, going into this camp, it would have been very awkward if we hadn't had it resolved. So I'm glad everything's resolved in a positive manner with the extension. And he basically went on to say this. So Bo Bichette says he's relieved to avoid the flawed arbitration process, and to expand on that a little bit, he spoke today about avoiding the arbitration process, which he believes is, quote, an incredibly flawed process by signing his 3-year extension. And he said to avoid it is good, but also to be on the same page with the team is nice too. And that's really the big quote of the day. They are on the same page with the team. He seems in good spirits. And obviously, we all know, and it's kind of widely known around baseball, the arbitration process itself is pretty flawed. Players hate it. Honestly, it seems like everyone hates it. But for him to say that he's happy with the team is a very good sign.
Yeah, I agree. And now he can focus solely on baseball as opposed to having distractions. And he wasn't arbitration eligible last offseason, but he did come to a bit of a standstill with the team when it came to his contract negotiations. And I think that affected him going into the season. He did not look like the Bo Bichette that we all came to know and love early on in the season. He was striking out at a ridiculous clip. He obviously was very aggressive at the plate, but he just didn't look like the same Bo Bichette that we all know. And I think that really did affect him, not being able to focus on baseball. The team's coming at you as to why they think you're worth less than what you think you are, and it's just not a good thing. So if you can avoid arbitration for the rest of his service-eligible years, then that's a good sign for not only Bichette, but for the team as well, and hopefully he can just get back to playing baseball and be locked in from the start of the season.
Yeah, and now he can focus on hopefully improving his defense because, like we've spoken about, that's the main thing. And again, like you said here, being on the same page with the team is the biggest thing. And avoiding future distractions is another great point that you made because, last year was pretty. He started off really poor, and obviously he saved his season in September and August like that. But before that, it was looking really, really bad, and obviously the negotiations came to a standstill. But the last thing, I guess, speaking on that a little bit, Bo Bichette on the 2023 Blue Jays coming off the tough end of 2022. He said you have to learn to lose together before you can learn to win. So we need to go out there and learn for what we didn't do right, me included. It's a little bit of maturing as a professional and a person. Do you have any thoughts on that? Very nice quote from him. And like we discussed in yesterday's video a little bit, the whole, everyone seems very happy. Everyone seems very locked in, and it seems very businesslike. And the Blue Jays are not trying to lose again in the Wild Card Series. They seem to have much higher aspirations.
Yeah, well, I said it in yesterday's video that the front office did all they could this offseason. And, they hired Don Mattingly. They brought in all the right players that they think would help them come October, come playoff time. And now it's up to the players, and your core guys, your Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s, your Bo Bichette's, your Alek Manoah's, your Dalton Varsho's, Alejandro Kirk. They all got to come together and become leaders on this team. It can't just be George Springer all the time. It can't be Kevin Kiermaier, who's going to be a welcomed addition to that clubhouse as well. It's got to be all of them pulling together and pushing the team in the right direction. And I think once your best players become your best leaders as well, it has a lasting impact on all those fringe players that you need to perform as well.
Yeah, it was very, very good to see. And Kevin Kiermaier, we don't have him in today's video, but he did also make an appearance, and it's good to see everyone being, positive, and Bo especially as well. But let's get into the second topic now, which is Schneider speaks on the upcoming season and his plans to run the bases more aggressively, which is something that he's kind of implemented since he took over for Charlie Montoyo halfway through the season. But here's the screenshot he said. He said, John Schneider's general themes in the first camp as the Blue Jays manager include being a little bit precise with the ball and urging guys to take care of every little thing. They're going to hear that all spring, meaning bases, defense, pitching, all that kind of stuff. Elaborated more by saying that they want to be more aggressive on the bases this season, and Bo Bichette echoed that, saying he already planned to be more aggressive regardless of the new bases and rules, which is something that we can also touch on. Obviously, the bases are bigger. There's a pitch clock now, which might, encourage stealing more because pitchers will be less preoccupied with the base pass. So I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on the Josh Schneider's first camp as the manager ever since taking over for Charlie?
Well, I loved what he did once he took over right away. He's showed to be aggressive. He put the hit and run on with a lot of his contact hitters, and then he kind of went away from that as his tenure went along. But I think now it's time with the bigger bases. You can't pick off as much if you're a pitcher, so you won't be able to hold those runners accountable as much. And it's all playing into your favor now to be more aggressive on the base pass. You got Dalton Varsho, who could swipe some bags. Kevin Kiermaier, who's one of the faster guys in the league. And you got rid of your two worst base runners as well. Not to knock on Lourdes Gurriel Jr. or Teoscar Hernandez, but they were not good on the base pass, despite being, fairly athletic players. They just were not conducive to helping you be aggressive on the base pass. So you have what it takes now. The rules are in your favor, and you got the roster composition to be an aggressive team and to be up there in the stolen bases leaders as well, and a full season of Whit Merrifield too. It didn't mention that.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing about Whit Merrifield, but also, like you said, the roster is now constructed for base stealing. They got rid of our two, like you said, probably the worst base runners in the team, and arguably as well some of the worst metric defenders on the team when it comes to advanced stats. And now, obviously, the rule changes. It seems like we've said this a few times. It seems like Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro kind of had this all planned out going into the season, or into the offseason, that is, with all these rule changes. But let us know what your thoughts are on that. And obviously, John Schneider had a bit of a sour ending to his 2022 season with the whole Kevin Gausman situation. But I think that's all boiled over now, and I'm excited to see what he can do. But let's move on to a bit of a lighter topic here, which is Kikuchi plus Ryu Sighting. So we'll have two screenshots that pop up. Let's pop up the first one, which is Yusei Kikuchi has a beard now, and obviously I don't have the video for you, but he was pitching, just a little video of him throwing fastballs, and the guy standing there pretending to be hitter, which is very brave, knowing Yusei Kikuchi's wild control, doesn't have any gear on. What are your thoughts on the bearded Yusei Kikuchi? There wasn't really crazy pictures of it, but maybe bearded Yusei Kikuchi is going to have a comeback season and return to, I guess, form from what he was earlier in his career.
Yeah, all jokes aside, maybe that does contribute to him having a bounce back here. But I noticed something in his delivery as well, and shout out to Chris Black, who does a great job on all of his threads, works at Sportsnet, very in-depth coverage of the Toronto Blue Jays on Twitter. He did a side by side of his days in Seattle as well as last year, and in Seattle he had the glove in his starting position. He had it all higher up like this, whereas last year he had it down to about his waist level, and maybe that contributed to throwing him off a little bit. His delivery was a little bit different, but now he's got it at chest level, kind of going back to his first half mechanics that he had in Seattle in his All-Star year in 2021. So maybe that'll help him bounce back. Maybe it's a mental thing with Yusei Kikuchi, but I'm glad that he's there and he's putting in the work, and seems healthy, seems to be throwing hard as well, but it remains to be seen what kind of impact he has this season.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see. And also Nate Pearson made a sighting on the screenshot for it, but he made some solid pitching. And if he could be a very useful piece. And we also have a picture of that circulated Twitter, which was Hyunjin Ryu, and the tweet said Hyunjin Ryu might have the biggest calves in North America, but I don't know. It's very the point is the pitcher was he's looking good, and I wanted to ask you this question: and do you think he's going to be able to have any impact this upcoming season? I know you've written him off a little bit, but he could be a very interesting, player to have there at the end of the season, a pitcher that is.
Well, if you're getting 2020 Hyunjin Ryu, then yes, he'll have an impact on the team. But I think he's past his prime, especially with this injury now in his elbow. He's just not the same pitcher that he was. And before the injury, he even started to decline a little bit. He was getting hit harder. He wasn't even touching 90 on the fastball, which he was able to do in 2020 and a little bit before that as well with the Dodgers. So I don't think he'll have much of an impact, if any impact at all, this season. But it's a good he's a good veteran to have on your team for a playoff push, because he's played on some really good teams in the past, and if you can have him coaching some of the younger inexperienced pitchers, or just having a guy to pick his brain. Former Cy Young finalist, ERA champ. He's not what he used to be, and I don't think he'll contribute this year. But he it doesn't hurt having those good veteran guys on your team.
I agree, and he played with for the Dodgers too. Obviously, a winning organization. It was good to see him at camp, help those younger pitchers out, and maybe help those battling for a roster spot among those, the Fernandezes and all those players. But let us know your thoughts are on that, and we'll move on quickly to the final topic here, which is MLB rule. I guess not a change, but I guess reinforced rule regarding the extra innings in the ghost runner. So I'll pop up this screenshot right now, which goes on to say, breaking, MLB's joint competition committee has voted unanimously to make the extra inning rule permanent for all regular season games moving forward. A runner will be placed at second base to start every extra inning. We'll just touch on this very briefly, Peter, because obviously we're familiar with the rule, but it's now officially extended and is not going anywhere. Do you like the rule? And obviously this doesn't count for the playoffs, but during the regular season, do you like it, or do you think it was, do you miss the old 19-inning games?
Yeah, no, I do like it. As much as I love baseball, I don't miss those 17 inning games or those super long games. And this also helps you for playoff scenarios as well, because you got to be able to move runners over and play situational small ball baseball. You got to do that once in a while, especially in the playoffs. And this helps. The Blue Jays were just off the top of my head, I think they were awful in extra innings last year. I can't remember them winning too many of those, and I think if they figure out how to not bunt guys over but move them over and cash them in when the time is right, then it'll help them in the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a fan of the rule in general, and it kind of makes sense for them to keep it. It ultimately helps, fast or speed up games that don't really need to be elongated in the playoffs still to keep the normal inning rule. So it's good overall. Let us know what your thoughts are on the rule, and that'll wrap up this video. We'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Lots of content coming up, so make sure to hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you then.
Thanks.